Fissure is the most talked about move in competitive Pokemon right now.
Another double target into that Excalibur. Ting-Lu once again free to maybe click Fissure. This Trident gets another one!
Fiona, stop!
No way! On to the Arcanine! That is all KOs in this game have been Fissure.
Fiona, cut it out! What are you doing?
Fiona is making the case for Fissure this weekend.
How did we get here? Today we're going to talk about Fissure and how to set yourself up to not lose to it at least as consistently as possible. If you're not familiar with Fissure, it is the epitome of a high-risk, high-reward move. Basically, 30% of the time, it will immediately knock out whatever Pokemon it targets. 70% of the time, it'll miss. It just won't do anything. Pokemon VGC is generally considered to be a pretty fast-paced format, especially compared to singles, which can oftentimes move at a snail's pace. In singles, one-hit KO moves are banned, but in VGC, nothing's banned. It's the wild, wild west when it comes to moves, and Fissure is allowed. That being said, because the format's so fast-paced, a lot of the time, it's really not worth running moves that will leave you doing nothing 70% of the time. You'll end up doing yourself more harm than good, because your Pokemon aren't going to be given that many opportunities to fire off a move like Fissure. Enter Ting-Lu, one of the brand new Treasures of Ruin Pokemon that's newly been made legal for Pokemon VGC's Regulation C. Ting-Lu not only has access to Fissure, but also has one of the most obscenely powerful defensive stat spreads I've ever seen. It has 155 base HP, 125 defense, and 80 special defense, which is pretty decent, but can also be heavily boosted by an Assault Vest. Pair that with a defensive Terra typing like Poison, and it's very, very difficult to remove Ting-Lu from the field of play. The main reason that you would run Ting-Lu is for its Vessel of Ruin ability. This lowers all surrounding Pokemon special attack by 25%, allowing the Ting-Lu to keep its partner Pokemon, which are the big damage dealers like your Scarlet or your Annihilate, alive for longer. What that also means is that Ting-Lu's already doing its job by just kinda being there. You don't need it to be clicking any particular moves, which means that it's kind of the optimal Pokemon to just click Fissure a bunch. On top of all of that, Ting-Lu also has access to the move Stomping Tantrum, which doubles in power if it's used after another move fails. So some players see Fissure as a way to just use Stomping Tantrum with double power every other turn. Instead of using Stomping Tantrum twice, you can just use it every other turn and get the same amount of damage out of it, but the turns that you're not using Stomping Tantrum, you have a 30% chance to just remove something from the field. Before we get into how best to counter Fissure, I briefly want to touch on how best to use Fissure. I recently brought Fissure Ting-Lu to a regional, and what I noticed is that a lot of people like to click the funny button. Which is honestly fair. It's really funny when you just click Fissure and it immediately connects into something. But really, if you're running Fissure Ting-Lu, you really shouldn't be clicking it all that often. You should keep it as a get-out-of-jail-free card for when you've lost the game. If you feel like the only chance you can win the game is by clicking Fissure, go for it. There's other niche situations where it might be okay to boost up Stomping Tantrum's power, but usually, consistent damage with a move like Ruination is probably gonna be better for you to do. So how do you counter Fissure? Well, the game gives us a few ways to just immediately wall the move. Fissure is a ground-type move, so any flying-type Pokemon like Corviknight or a Levitate Pokemon like Rotom will be completely immune to it. Same thing goes for Terra-flying Pokemon, also a pretty good way to deal with it. The third, much more niche way of dealing with it is the Sturdy ability. Sturdy Pokemon are completely immune to one-hit KO moves. If a Ting-Lu clicks Fissure into your Sashed Great Tusk, it will still take it down to Sash, but if it uses it into a Sturdy Garganacl, the move just won't work. It won't bring you down to 1 HP, it just won't work. So there are ways to hardwall Fissure Ting-Lu, but unless you can find a way to build a cohesive team of all flying, levitate, and sturdy Pokemon, you're gonna need a little bit more than that. In my opinion, the best way to deal with Fissure Ting-Lu is to just remove it from the field. A lot of people have just been leaving it on the field for way too long, thinking that they can get away with dropping a Will-O-Wisp on it or just intimidating it a few times, when Fissure just doesn't care about any of that stuff. I feel like every team right now needs to have a dedicated button to removing Ting-Lu from play. A very popular Ting-Lu counter is Gyarados. Gyarados does have Intimidate to weaken its non-Fissure moves, but it maintains that flying typing to be immune to Fissure while hitting it super effectively with Waterfall. At least you force a Terra on the Ting-Lu, which could probably be taken advantage of by another Pokemon on your team. My personal favorite way to deal with it is with Palafin. If you can get Palafin in and out, Hero form Palafin is going to have no problem removing that Ting-Lu from play. Poison is a very popular Terra type for the Ting-Lu, and even if you force a Terra Poison on it, you should still be 2-hit KOing it with Wave Crash relatively comfortably. Another interesting option is to run something like a Tauros Fire or a Great Tusk. Fighting coverage is really good. Tauros is particularly good into Ting-Lu because when it's not running Terra Poison, a lot of the time it's running Terra Grass. With Close Combat and Flare Blitz, you cover both of those types, which can also be super nice. Another thing to consider in-game, especially if you lose your Ting-Lu counter, is that Fissure is a 5 PP move. Most top players will PP max their low PP moves, but not everyone's gonna do that. You can use things like Protect or defensive switch-ins into flying types to try to bait out Fissure uses and lower the PP. The less chances they have to hit it, the less likely you are to just lose a Pokemon. So Ting-Lu should be able to deal with a late-game Wo-Chien pretty effectively because you basically have 5 turns to click Fissure. But I guess there's one more way to counter Fissure. Here you go. If you're a Wo-Chien player, go ahead and run Spite. Your opponent's gonna have 2 chances to hit you with Fissure instead of 8. You're welcome. Unfortunately, I don't think that Fissure is going to fall off anytime soon. Ting-Lu without Fissure is very easy to neuter with just a Will-O-Wisp burn or even an Intimidate or 2. It doesn't have a lot of great offensive options, so Fissure just is the best thing that you can do in that 4th move slot, especially on an Assault Vest variant. That being said, if you play optimally around it, you can give your opponent no more than 1, maybe 2 chances to hit a Fissure, and even if they hit one and then lose the Ting-Lu, that's kind of a 1-for-1 trade. I don't think that Fissure is great for the game, and I don't think it's very fun to play against it, but I also don't think that it's as big a problem for the meta as everyone is making it out to be. We'll get a lot better at playing against Fissure, and hopefully as people get better at using it, they'll click it less as well. Hopefully this video helps to assuage some of your Fissure fears, and helps to set you up for success into the Ting-Lu matchup going forward. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Fissure Ting-Lu, and what your favorite Ruin Pokemon is. Drop a like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you don't miss any more of the upcoming VGC action, and I'll see you guys next time.